Welcome back. This is Business. We are talking about Visa cards and ecitizen. And joining us is Ivan Gigi, who's the Acting General Manager, Visa East Africa. Thank you so much for joining us today.
Thank you, Kelvin.
All right. So let's get right into the conversation and look at Visa cards. First of all, in June, President William Ruto introduced 5,000 services, and the move was sort of trying to digitize the government. So up to where we are right now, what is the progress from where you sit?
Okay, yeah, so I think, let me start by saying, as a Kenyan, I feel proud. I feel proud that, we sit ahead of the curve in terms of digitization of government services. And I say that also with a lens, across the world. So Visa is a global payments technology company that is pretty much across the world. We're present in over 200 countries. So when I look at what happened in June, the launch of 5,000 or the addition of 5,000 services on the one-stop platform for government services, and where we are at today, from a payment perspective, we've seen some very good uptake.
Okay.
So more citizens are paying for government services online. And that's pretty much why we came into this. Because, so government digitization is one thing, but payment sits at the center of it. And being a payments technology company that, strives for safe, secure, seamless payments, it's no different from what we do on merchant payments. Yeah, so merchant payments is when you go to a shop, are buying physical goods or digital goods online, and you're able to pay through an instrument, and that instrument is your card. It's no different when it comes to government services. So you go into the ecitizen platform. I want to renew my driver's license. At the end of that transaction, or for completion of that transaction, a payment has to happen, and that's where we come in. So we are the providers of the online payment gateway that allows both domestic or local and international cards to pay for government services of whichever kind, or at least of the 5,000 that have been introduced. So we've seen a high uptake. We've seen some great learnings in terms of what consumers are looking at, because our process is very iterative, right? What is offered on day one, is a continuous improvement of what will continue to be offered, because consumers are now, more experienced. There's no difference between Kelvin, the consumer who's on Amazon, and Kelvin, the citizen who's paying for services on ecitizen. You're pretty much expecting the same experience. So there's been amazing progress, amazing feedback from the users, our partners, financial institutions. So it's that continuous improvement to make sure that we get to a point where it's quite seamless. Yeah.
All right, very well explained. Now let's look at also the spread of this in the rural areas, the far-flung areas, and which are some of the services that you would say people in the rural areas, because in the urban areas, online, people are really embracing it. But when you look at these far-flung areas, what are some of the services that are really popular there? Because we can't say all are just popular everywhere. So give us a perspective when it comes to people in the rural areas.
Okay, and disclaimer, I'm really not the expert, because I will see the tail end of this, but as a user of the platform, and coming from, at least I've got, my home back there. So things like ID services. ID is, a core service to everyone. For you to pretty much function, you need an ID. I think in some cases, driver's license, yeah, that's also a critical service. But what I would say is, and to the original point you made, and I guess this is one of the things that that government has gotten right, is the omni-channel or multiple channel offering of government services. So yes, ecitizen, the web-based platform is one of the channels, but the Huduma centers, there's work around making the agencies, that banks have built, that mobile money have rolled out as one of the centers where services will be offered. So yes, the ultimate, or in an ideal world, is where everyone has access to the online platform, because then it's a seamless experience and there's visibility across board. But as we start to ensure that there's no gap or exclusion, then multiple channels have been made available for the services to be offered. I might not have offered, exclusively the services, but at least, I speak as a typical citizen, yeah? So at least the ID service is critical to everyone. And I guess the other thing is even passport services. We saw the crisis when, there was backlog. There's everyone across the divide, regardless of where you reside, was affected. So passport services are also quite critical to citizens across. Yeah.
All right. Now, let's look at Visa. What's its role when it comes to the ecitizen platform? And how has it been since it came into that platform?
So let me start off by describing our purpose. Our purpose is to include everyone everywhere by being the best way to pay and be paid. In terms of how we work, so we work through financial institutions, we work with fintechs, and we also work with the government. Yeah, and government is sort of like a very special, category for us. One, because they're the reason that we operate in every of the markets that we operate. But given the experience that we've built in terms of digitizing payments when cash was predominant, because if you look at one of the beneficiaries of digitization of cash is economies. Yeah, there's transparency when it comes to the movement of trade. There's inclusion. Yeah, because if I'm a foreigner coming into the country and I say want to pay for a government service, say the e-visa, yeah, that is one of the ways like that tourism is facilitated. So we see this as a critical thing for us to do being in Kenya. Yeah, making it possible or making it easy for government to pay and government to be paid. So that's why we came in. The second part is something that we advocate for, secure payments. If there's one thing that we've learned over the years is security of payments is one of the reasons that drives adoption of digitization and adoption of or moving away from cash. If people feel that a payment system is secure, they will move to that payment system. So being, in the middle of it and ensuring that, we're playing our role in providing secure payments, that's the other reason that we got into it. The third one is knowing that, back to an original point I made, there's no difference between Kelvin, the citizen, and Kelvin, the user of Amazon or the user of Alibaba, any of the global marketplaces or platforms that we know. So playing our role in terms of supporting on accelerating innovation to make sure that the online platforms or the digital services that are being offered are innovative, forward-looking, secure, and pretty much staying in sync with how fast the citizen is advancing. Yeah.
All right. And now I'll stick to your second point about being secure. Let us look at cybersecurity, card frauds. When it comes to card fraud, because it's really rampant, and also cybersecurity, what are some of the measures that are being put in place in order for this to steer the platform really in an easy way? Because these are things that usually people tend to come in contact with.
Yeah, and you're right. Let me give some numbers. So what happened is when COVID came in 2020, a lot of the trade moved online. Yeah, there was minimal movement. So concepts like e-commerce became quite rampant. And then the fact that, we were not using a lot of cash because cash was accelerating transmission, we saw fraud move online. So earlier, the kind of fraud that we'd see is, very basic.
Yes.
But it's become advanced over the years. So the approach we've taken, one, is investing. So as a payments network, in the last 4 years, we've invested close to $10 billion to just make sure, we continue to enhance the security of our payments network. And then the second part is driving thought leadership with government, regulators, our partners, financial institutions, just talking to them about the trends that we're seeing in fraud. Because fraud, like innovation, is also very progressive. Yeah, so speaking to them about the different types of fraud. So you can imagine a global payments network, the kind of attacks or attempted attacks that we see, because actually 100% of them are attempted attacks. So sharing that experience with our constituents is also quite key, because then it helps them formulate strategies to prevent that. The third one is tools. So we've been at this for close to 50 years. That's processing of digital payments. And we've gained a lot of experience. And out of that, we've built tools. So like right now, if you use your card, the card is risk scored. And that is a platform that helps the issuer, the bank that has given you the card, make a decision on whether this is a secure transaction or not. Yeah, so, and that protects you as a consumer. And those are the tools that we will use, technologies like AI to help, assess, evaluate fraud on a real-time basis. We are a network that processes 67,000 transactions per second. And every of these transactions is scored. Every of these transactions is assessed for fraud. So bringing in that expertise through tools, through thought leadership, through investments to make sure that the flow of trade continues without because it's very easy to say that e-commerce has seen the emergence of new forms of fraud. We might as well take a back seat. No, the world's not going to stop. We're so dependent on digital trade. The best we can do is to continue to innovate and provide solutions to that. Let me speak to cybersecurity.
Yes.
So last year, through a partnership with the Central Bank, put together the industry and had a cybersecurity summit. And what we did in that forum is to bring experts from all over the world to speak to what we're seeing. And secondly, what are some of the interventions that can be put in place, whether in form of policies? And these were, experts from different components of the industry, regulators, some aspects of government. We had, risk experts, we had financial institutions, we had fintechs, we had MNOs in that room. What are some of the policies that we need to put in place to ensure that we continue to improve? The good thing is, as a country, we're very progressive. We now have our data protection regulation, and that is, a very strong thing, because when it comes to how data is handled, how data is shared, there's protection around that. The second part was what are some of the interventions in form of tools, from across the world, some through partnerships, some co-creations, etc. What are some of the tools that can be embraced in an organization to make sure that you protect yourselves from cybersecurity? So the primary role that we take when it comes to the fight against cyber fraud is thought leadership, provision of tools, and the continuous improvement, embracing new technologies to continue to enhance how we protect the ecosystem.
All right.
Yeah.
And now, let's move away from even cybersecurity and also card fraud and look at people who don't have debit or people who don't have credit cards. How do you target them, and how is it, first of all, because someone doesn't believe in having those cards, so how do you target them?
That's a good question. It's at the same time a very difficult question. Let me put it into perspective. So there's around 11 million cards in this market. But when you look at that number, and then you look at the number of wallet holders, and I think the most prevalent wallet here is the mobile wallet. And then you look at the number of people that have got bank accounts. I think that number is probably anywhere between 18 and 20 million. Yeah, sorry, I don't have the latest numbers. Mobile wallets around 38 million. Yeah, so there's disparity. But the one consistent story is there's adoption. Yeah, for as long as there is a solution that makes sense, then there is adoption. Then there's the second point. When you look at the demographics of our population, we have got a large youthful population. And these are digital natives. I mean, they were born when a mobile phone was present in their home in one form or another. So adoption to technology is not, like people from my generation. And I will not unpack that point. So when you then combine that, I don't think we have much of a problem. What we need to do is to ensure that, one, whatever is available is mobile first. Yeah, so we are slowly moving away from the era of plastic cards, physical cards, and the card can now exist on a mobile phone.
Yes.
We have digital cards, virtual cards. Last year, we launched a virtual card with Safaricom, which is a card that is accessible to any mobile wallet holder. So the form factor is moving. So making it available on a mobile phone is one way to address the issue of adoption. The second one is education and awareness, and that's the other way we're partnering with ecitizen to at least use the various platforms that we've got to advance awareness on what does the ecitizen platform offer? What are some of the controls within it to make the citizen feel safe? How else do we make this platform intuitive? Because think about the different platforms that you use and what drives you to use them. I mean, when you use, say, a social platform, Instagram, the fact that, I can filter my photos, that drives usage. Yeah, so bringing in, these different types of technology to make it user-friendly, to improve, the customer journey across the different services, that is what is going to drive adoption. And then the last one is, what is in it for the citizen? Is it fast service? Is it security? Is it affordability? Is it the additional, benefits that they can get from the platform? And remember, as an international payments system, we invented loyalty, right? So for you to use your card, what are the incremental values that you get from that? So blending in all of that and making them available to the citizen, that's what we're committing to drive adoption. Yeah.
All right. And now, even as we now gear towards a close, first of all, let me just ask about card usage in Kenya. Is it significant enough to make a real difference when it comes to the growth of Visa and also using the ecitizen platform?
So let me first speak of them as two separate points. How is card usage in Kenya? When you look at it from a domestic lens, it's still relatively largely low. Yeah, and then when you look at it from a cross-border, travelers, when I'm buying my air ticket, booking my hotel, shopping when I'm abroad, the usage there is extremely high. But at least a significant amount or a significant number of our population is still domestic, right? But then you look at other angles like remittance. Yeah, there's a large population that benefits from that. So to your question, when I combine those 2 points, yes, it is still significant. Remember the 11 million cards I talked about? They're still quite significant. Remember that we've got a huge youthful population. Remember we've got consumers who are always pushing for choice, and government has been very vocal about that, because at the end of the day, the consumer needs more from the supply side for them to be able to get better value. Yeah. So when I look at the next phase of payments, I know we've talked about financial inclusion for a long time. I mean, having hit 83% as a country, I think the next phase is in the quality of services that will be offered, especially from a payments point of view. And I believe we're at that point because COVID, took us through the phase of moving, completely from physical to digital. Yes. So we're now getting into the phase where the consumer is more informed. And that's because they're interacting with payment systems on a regular, because of things like ecitizen, right? I need a government service every other day. So we're moving into a new phase. And I guess that new phase, while the jury is still out, I think the person that provides the most innovative solution makes the citizen feel safe, provides incremental and evident value at the right price, will win. Though, I keep saying the payments game is not a zero-sum game.
Yes.
Yeah, it's not a winner takes all. So it's continuous innovation.
Right. Yeah. Right. Even as we close, I believe now the future is digitization, and you've spoken about having the cards from having them physical now into digital. So I believe we are going to be seeing that in the coming near future. Correct. All right. Thank you so much, Ivan Gigi there, who is acting General Manager, Visa East Africa, speaking to us about the inclusion of Visa cards into ecitizen and also the future of payments. We've come to the end of this edition of Business Today. My name is Kelvin Nyakundi. Hadia Masiwa coming in next with Mbiu ya KTN.